Welcome into another edition of As Aaron Rodgers Turns, or The Days of Aaron Rodgers' Life. Really could be the title of this show and many other shows that cover the Pittsburgh sports scene, namely the Pittsburgh Steelers here. This is actually another edition of Mic Drop here, made possible by the Believe Network, available everywhere you get your podcasts and played on SiriusXM. I'm, as always, Mike Asti, and of course, we're going to talk about everything that everyone else is talking about, because we have to. Aaron Rodgers and the waiting game that is Aaron Rodgers and his likely future and one more season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but has yet to sign on the dotted line. Did not appear in the facility this past weekend, despite reports that he was going to show up and sign. Multiple contrary reports flying all over the place. Adam Schefter just moments ago saying he does not have an Aaron Rodgers update. So Adam Schefter, granted, Rodgers told him to lose his number a couple years ago, does not have an Aaron Rodgers update. So we'll see if anybody else does. But right now, still everyone assuming Aaron Rodgers is going to play this next season, but nothing is official yet. A lot did happen, though, at the Steelers facility as rookie minicamp got underway nonetheless. So before we get to all of that and the rest of this team's roster, because, again, as I've been saying, regardless of what Rodgers does, the ceiling for this team is probably what it is regardless, and probably it may not matter whether it has Aaron Rodgers or not as far as this team can go based on the whole roster. But I'm going to bring on Chris Adamski of the Tribune-Review to talk about, I'm sure, his favorite topic these days, Aaron Rodgers. Chris, how you doing, man?
Yeah, it's not exactly wouldn't be the first time I talk about Aaron Rodgers, but no, sure. I'm doing well. Good to always catch up with you. Another a couple of buzzsaws here chatting. But the Aaron Rodgers thing just it goes on all last spring, all this spring or whatever, and I just wanted to end so that we can stop talking about it. We'll all forget about it ever happened in this manner anyway.
Yeah, and you would think that next year at this time we will not be talking about Aaron Rodgers, but you never can know. You never can know. You never can guarantee your life does not surround Aaron Rodgers anymore. And yeah, for those who are not aware, Chris and I both share a moniker, a nickname here in the Pittsburgh media space of the Buzzsaw. I actually have another national show, the Howitzer and Buzzsaw show, that I'll plug here since Chris threw that out there and got it in college that multiple other colleagues can attest to. And Chris had it, I believe, even before then, because he is older than me. So to date him with his quick ability to churn out content for the Trib. And funny aside there, Chris, actually, while I was sitting with a colleague of ours, Will Graves, with the AP covering the NFL draft at Acrisure, he made a comment about connecting with you on something and referred to you as Buzz, as he often does, and then looked right at me because I was sitting right there and said, Mike, I wasn't actually talking about you. I was talking about the other Buzz, just to clarify so that I didn't think he was talking about me. Not that I really would have been in that particular instance, but to jump back into things, aside from our personal jokes, Chris, Aaron Rodgers is still not yet officially a Pittsburgh Steeler. He played for the team last year. They had a fine year. He was the best quarterback they've had in 5 years. I mean, he had a better year than Pickett, anybody else we could name, even the end of Ben Roethlisberger. They still got in the playoffs and lost right away, so you had a similar result. Now we have another year of this. And we all know the whole offseason timeline of Rooney II kind of throwing out a deadline. He wanted to know by the draft. Clearly that did not occur. And now we're here waiting again after multiple reports, thinking this past weekend finally would end things. But we now appear further than ever before of this actually being over with. And maybe it'll happen as we're recording, but who knows? Do you still feel, before we fully get into it, do you still feel now that it is more likely than not, for a legal term here, that Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026? Has anything changed in that regard, at least?
No, I mean, the entire time, especially going through this last offseason, whatever uncertainties there were at that point, or not knowing, not that I have this great, deep personal relationship with everyone, but being in the locker room all last year with him. And so knowing Aaron Rodgers to that level, that somebody can know him. It's just, I feel like this is kind of just like I've been telling people, Aaron being Aaron. And And last year, all the sort of unknown about him showing up late and have that affect the team and whether the chemistry and will the players be annoyed with him, will he establish that all went out the window. Whatever you want to say about Aaron Rodgers and the season and how it went and how he can play at age 42 years old, I get it. But in terms of the chemistry, in terms of the way he was in the locker room, in terms of the respect from his teammates, the way he bonded with his teammates, all of that was top notch. So him showing up in June last year didn't affect. It wasn't as if whatever their shortcomings were as a team and an offense, it wasn't because he didn't get those reps in April with Roman Wilson or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
It didn't affect the season. So I think this will end here in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll never talk about it again. And then during training camp, it'll be like it never happened. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. But maybe I just have more fatigue than usual because I kind of my job to follow it too. So
yeah, but I mean, to that, you were there every day in that locker room, and I've never heard from anybody who's been in there every day. And when I was there, I experienced the same thing, that Aaron Rodgers was just professional. You didn't even get the same national hoopla that you got when he was with the Jets. And of course, it's different being with the Steelers than the Jets, but he wasn't on McAfee every single week. He wasn't making political comments every single day. He was doing kind of what the Rooney family hinted, the Steelers hinted, and what people kind of said they wanted from him, that if you're going to come, play football, be the best quarterback we've had in a while, don't do all the other stuff, be fine in the locker room, be a team guy, be the leader here, and that's it. And that's what he was. So he was fine, which I am sure why many around the Steelers, granted this is a different group now with Mike McCarthy there and no longer Mike Tomlin, which trickles down to many others who are no longer there, would be fine with another year of this. And you did mention the system and him being there late was not a big deal for an older QB. Granted, a new coach now, a new staff, but a new offensive game plan is similar to what he used 10 years ago. He's experienced Mike McCarthy, of course. They won a Super Bowl together. It's not like this is a total wild card new coach that he'd have to learn everything new either. So I don't think him showing up late will be why he plays well or he doesn't. However, is there any differences for you about this dragging out this season than last? And what I've continuously brought up that fans don't want to hear, the difference this year than last is Art Rooney II did, whether you want to say he definitively put a deadline out is a different argument, but he certainly publicly at least flirted with when he wanted to know what Rodgers was going to do. And there were comments they didn't want to have this linger again, yet it is. Does that make handling this any different for you? Or in Rodgers' world, he just doesn't care and he knows they're going to forget about it in August. So again, he doesn't care.
I mean, it's definitely, if you want to break odd behavior, I guess, you give him the benefit of the doubt last year at this time when he said, because, you never want to call somebody out. I don't know the answer. He says, somebody's going through a personal issue. Somebody in my inner circle. That's what he said. That was the line last year. He said on the McAfee show about whether he wanted to play or not. He had to deal with the personal issue with the person in his inner circle. Okay.
Sure.
So, you give the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to call anybody out for anything. I don't know what happened, whatever.
Right.
So, okay. So then it happens this year again. Now we're going through the same thing again. It's just like, I don't know. Like he has to, he knows the organization. Now I know it's a new head coach, but it's an old head coach to him, a familiar head coach.
Sure. He knows.
So he should know the offense. He knows the personnel. He talked, and I believe it was genuine. He seemed happy. He liked being here.
Yeah.
So why it's taking again, I don't know. Like I said, it's just Aaron, I guess. Could he just, I don't know why, because again, this is all voluntary except for 3 practices in late May here that are mandatory.
Yeah.
So if he didn't want to take part in all this, he could have just signed the contract in March.
That's right.
And still showed up in
There
June.
you go. There you go.
That's the part that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But,
there you go.
But my perspective now, I think all of our perspectives, generally speaking, fan perspective, Aaron Rodgers, our view of him, you brought up a good point about being with the Jets. He was on TV every week. There's the off the field stuff. He would comment on this and that. And running for vice president was part,
right.
Jeopardy, whatever it might be. It was all out there. And when he got here, that didn't really materialize at all, from what I could tell. And again, whatever, my perspective, personal, everybody, fans' perspective, teammates' perspective. Remember, Cam Hayward at this point last year was saying, "You get here or don't," that kind of thing.
Not hearing anything from Cam Hayward even on his show anymore. It seems like he kind of got word like, "Don't talk about Aaron."
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, he's like the only person who's not commenting on this that has a media space.
That's a good point. Yeah,
and it is interesting. He doesn't want to poke it because
as the captain, he would have a legitimate reason to do it too. So the fact he's not is interesting. But yeah, so I just feel like we saw this movie before, and maybe just me. I just feel like it'll get done, and he'll be here, and then it'll if they're long as things are going well and they're winning to a good enough degree, and he's playing well enough. Now, if they, obviously they start out 0-3, or he throws 2 interceptions week 1 or something, maybe it'll get brought up again. Like, well, if you would have been here in April, it would have been,
I'm sure it will. Yeah.
Yes. So I get it, but we'll see. And be honest with you, there's 2 young quarterbacks to try and develop right now. So it's the worst thing in the world if this next week, the first week of OTAs, they're the ones getting all the reps, and there's no veteran taking reps away. Probably a good thing in the long-term perspective as well for the Steelers.
Yeah, Chris Adamski of the Tribune-Review here. Mike Asti on Mic Drop talking, of course, Aaron Rodgers and the waiting game with the Pittsburgh Steelers here to lead off the show. You kind of hit on the nail on the head for me that if Aaron Rodgers, and you want to take him at face value, I'll take him at face value. So I do kind of think he secretly likes being talked about. He says he does not. So if we're going to take him at face value, Chris, then if he does not like this conversation, because when he shows up, I'm sure he's going to drop subtle comments of not liking this conversation like he did last year. If he really doesn't want discussed on this show or any others, the way to not get discussed and not have to be part of rookie minicamp or be part of these non-required or these voluntary camps is to do exactly what you said, that I don't think anyone with the Steelers would have argued against or been unhappy about. To give Rooney what he wanted and call him on the phone and say, here's where I'm thinking, here's where I'm at, when he wanted before the draft. If he couldn't even meet that demand, he could have at least called the man and said, I don't know yet, give me a couple more weeks. Then once we get there, he could have made the final decision in his brain at least and decided and told Art Rooney II, hey, I want to play one more year. I don't want to do any BS until June. I don't want to be in Pittsburgh. I don't even want to be there at all, but I want to play football. Is that cool? I think we both know it's almost guaranteeably it would have been fine. That would have been fine, especially if they would have got the answer. And if that's the case and he would have allowed somebody to report Rodgers is going to be back, at least get that decision. Or even to officially sign and then they could announce it and then have the caveat in the report, he won't be there until June. That is it. Stop talking about it. I honestly believe it'd be talked about significantly less. You would have people complaining and saying that that's a bit much for a 42-year-old. You'd have some saying, as you said, it's maybe better to just be done with him and let a young guy play. And is that going to really lead them to a title? I've argued against that being the case for Aaron Rodgers for weeks now. But I don't think you would get the hornet's nest of debate on everybody's show, everyone's podcast, and everyone's social media about what is he going to do. You certainly would not have a weekend where you have multiple colleagues with multiple reports and then national reports that can contradict those reports. That would not have happened if Rodgers would have just said, I'm in, not till June, or I signed, not till June. That could have fixed a lot of this right now if he doesn't want to hear from this.
Which, and you know what? And doing it this way also leads to speculation and not unwarranted. Certainly reasonable speculation to say he's waiting to see what if, Matt Stafford back gives out during OTAs or something.
Yeah,
to get surgeries after the year. And the Rams.
It's why I had to open with, is he actually going to play for the Steelers? Like, that question is still out there because he has yet to make a decision. Yeah. Does he want to play? Does he want to wait for a veteran QB that could be on a title team and have them get hurt and then he goes ahead and rides it off? Or, I mean, people always bring up the Cardinals, which I never buy because they're not going to win. But does he just want to dangle that out there? Or, well, you didn't mention, does he want even more money? Because some have reported that and others have scoffed at it. But I don't know if that's why, and I don't believe that's why. But if he keeps lingering this, that is a continuous, legit speculation.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I don't know. Not as if the Steelers are in a cap crunch,
right?
Or they have plenty of room in the cap. There's plenty of ways to make more room.
Right.
So money-wise, from a pure football planning perspective, what he had paid last year, even the tender they offered this year, is still below market value for even a low-end starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And I know they don't have the leverage. If you want to get pure negotiating here, the Steelers could say, take it or leave it, buddy. But at the same time, it's like people have the perspective he shouldn't be this, and that's a whole other discussion, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I sort of get it. But if he's going to be your starting quarterback this year, if you pay him $20 million or $25 million rather than $11 million or $15 million, the cap isn't an issue, really. I mean, you have plenty of space to figure that out. It's not going to prohibit you from getting another player. It doesn't really matter. It's yes, you want to pay less. There leave cap space. You can roll some. There's a lot of reasons why it's still to the Steelers' advantage marginally to pay him less, but the money isn't really. It shouldn't be I mean, Kirk Cousins got to explicitly be a backup, essentially.
Yeah, his agent is fantastic. Greatest agent of all time, literally.
So he got paid. It's not, if you pay Aaron Rodgers more, you quote unquote lose the negotiation, I guess, or you look, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. They have this cap space. It's a starting quarterback. That's the value for a starting quarterback. If they determine he should be the starting quarterback, quite frankly, this point of the offseason, the leverage that Rodgers would have if this really got to this point is that there's no other real option unless you're just rolling with Mason Rudolph and the young guys. I don't know who else, would you get Derek Carr out of retirement? I don't know where you go.
I mean, even Geno Smith is back with the Jets that we mentioned earlier. I mean, there really is no other vet, but I could flip it, and I don't want to spend all show here on Aaron Rodgers, but I could flip it and argue if that's Rodgers' play to get in his brain, which is a wacky wonderland, by the way. The man has a self-titled documentary, Enigma, so you can know where his mind sometimes goes. But if he is seriously holding out for more money, which, as you correctly articulated, the money that he would want, it's not like he wants $50 million a year like he was MVP in his prime. He wants just simply, I'm the starting quarterback for 1 year. This is what the market value is. He got below that last year. So if you're going to have him, and I think we all agree if you're going to sign him, he's going to start. You're at least going to open up the year with him starting. Maybe you would bench him in week 10 if it's going horribly, but you got to start with him. It'd be insane for him to tell him he can start. He then is your backup. That's going to be how you poke the bear and end up with a drama. So if you have him there and he's going to start, he just wants starter money. Even if he's paid as the worst starter in football, that's what he wants. He didn't get it last year. That's fair. But if that's what he's doing and he's holding out for more money and they're quibbling over $5 million or something and the Steelers don't want to go there and he wants to go there, whatever, I could argue that he doesn't have all the leverage. Maybe it's 60-40 in his favor. But as you said, Matt Stafford didn't break his leg to this point. Who else? Patrick Mahomes now looks like he's going to jump in there and potentially start week 1 for the Chiefs. So it's not like you can ride in and start the beginning of that year and get some type of backup ring where you at least started a lot of games. I don't know where he wants to go that's going to win, even to the first round loss level of the Steelers. The Cardinals are very far away. That holding them as leverage is not going to be a better team scenario. So you could argue that if you call up the Rodgers camp right now and say, look, we'll go 25. We won't go a penny more. That is low-end starter money. We at least want you to sign. You don't have to show up until June. And Rodgers says, no, I want up to 30 because I'm a future Hall of Famer. Or even if you're arguing over 25 and 20, I think you could legitimately say, no, we're not going to play this game. And if you want to retire and then go on McAfee and say the Steelers after Tomlin screwed me over and I now hate them, so be it. That's where, so be it. I know they don't probably want that, but so be it. We're living in this world. It does feel like they're a little bit, even bringing up Cam Hayward. He has a podcast that gets a lot of views. He's not talking about Aaron Rodgers. That is the number one topic on the team he plays for. We're coming off scared of this man now in year 2. That's just where it stands right now, it appears. But I, of course, agree he's likely going to show up. Chris Adamski here of the Tribune-Review on Mic Drop. You did also mention, though, there are other quarterbacks on this roster. And because Aaron Rodgers did not show up this past weekend and has yet to show up, Will Howard, Drew Allar in particular, who was at the Steelers rookie minicamp, are going to get more reps in this offseason. And even Mason Rudolph currently still a member of this team. Going to Drew Allar, from what you saw from him, because you were there, what was something that maybe stood out from what you saw from Drew Allar? What was Mike McCarthy doing with him? Where is he now, seeing him in person with an NFL team for you and with Mike McCarthy versus maybe even what you thought of him at Penn State and coming out of the draft? Because I also know you're a Penn State guy and watched a lot of him in college. What's the Drew Allar of this all?
I do think it is noticeable how the ball comes off, the zip he has on the ball. I think his arm is certainly legit. His arm is, upper level NFL starter caliber arm in terms of his arm strength. It takes a heck of a lot more to be a good NFL quarterback than the strong arm.
Yeah.
And, it's important. It's good. I mean, there are certain throws that he can make that, quite frankly, like a Will Howard can't make, would say, for instance, or throws you feel a lot more comfortable. I think your offense will be open. I think you noticed that in that setting, even in that rookie camp setting. What stood out to me about watching him was, well, first, the fact that the Steelers didn't have another – the way rookie camp works, people don't know, your draft picks, you're undrafted free agent, and then there are the guys on your reserve future contracts that don't have any NFL experience. Essentially, they were on practice squads last year or your previous multiple years, your teams and other teams, maybe in camp with some teams, but they don't. Once you reach a certain accrued season, you can't play. Like, in other words, Will Howard couldn't have been there because he was on the 53-man roster for most of last season,
right?
Or was all of last season. You don't count the IR, so he wasn't eligible anyway. But then there's a bunch of tryouts too. So just to give you an idea, so there's 40 players. The tryouts there, yes, they are literally trying out. They get a chance to impress, but largely because you need to have a full complement of every position filled. You need to run a practice, right? You need to have DBs out there. Right. You don't have enough on your rookies. So in other words, it's fairly 100% common practice. You have a couple quarterbacks that you bring multiple guys. It just makes things easier. Might be a guy from Slippery Rock. Might be a guy.
That's what I mean. Like, there are a lot of pit guys often that a lot of the time that don't end up making the team. They throw them a bone, or you get just random people to be fillers. Yeah.
Yes, and the reason I'm bringing that up is that they chose not to do that at quarterback, and that was intentional. To kind of all the attention and all the eyes and all the resources are devoted to Drew Allar, for one thing. The coaches, they didn't want to be distracted by somebody else, essentially, when they're on the practice field, working on the footwork, whatever. And also, I think they wanted to kind of push his limits. Okay, I mean, it might sound almost silly to us as non-athletes or whatever. Me, I don't want to agree.
I'm not an athlete. No, I mean, I ran track in high school. I golf occasionally, slash it through, and now I'm worse than I was years ago. But no, I wouldn't.
But there's a certain mental and physical taxing. He ran every single team rep as a quarterback. He ran, I think he said 35 in a row during that time, and that doesn't happen ever in football practice, right? There's always subbing in the second team, second quarterback, whatever it might be. So I think they wanted to see as much as they possibly could in reps with him and kind of just push him a little bit, push his limits for as far as you can in rookie minicamp. I think a lot of it was done intentionally in the service of developing Drew Allar. And we saw the way they talk, they're essentially trying to strip him down to square one. Let's start over here. Footwork, mechanics, let's do that. I think that's what they're going to do. And that's the thing about, assuming Aaron Rodgers is here, the benefit of you don't need him to play this year. There's very few scenarios where he would play this year. You would need multiple injuries, and that's fine. They're projecting for the future. We're going to spend this year, get him up to speed. We know we have that strong arm. We know we have that, and we played a lot of college football. He's at the Big Ten level. Yeah. And so I think that was kind of what the Steelers, the way they're approaching Drew Allar in general, overall, and the way in particular they did during rookie minicamp.
Yeah, and the raw talent of Drew Allar, despite the hiccups in big games in college, is why Mike McCarthy, a quarterback guru, I'm sure, is thinking to himself, I understand all these college coaches behind the scenes, some outward. I understand all these college analysts. I understand all these draft experts thought maybe Aaron Rodgers end up being a college bust. I can get the most out of him in the NFL. I can fix the problems. I'm sure he thinks that the Penn State offense didn't suit him, which is kind of even true and has kind of been admitted by some. College offenses today, even for top programs, do not really translate as well to the NFL for a lot of quarterbacks. So I'm sure Mike McCarthy thinks, I can be the guy to get everything out of this man. He can have success under me. And I don't even have time to mess around with somebody who I'm not going to play. I'm an older coach. Like, I'm, bringing in a local kid to throw some balls at rookie minicamp would have been cool in the past. We're not going to do it now. We want to focus on Drew Allar. That's an interesting point. Now, a lot of the videos that were out there on social media, it made Allar look really slow. But as you said, they were trying to strip him down and do really fundamental drills, even intentionally designing the plays to be really slow. They didn't want him to try to scramble. So I think that was a confusion that because everything gets out there in social media, there are a lot of fans think he looks worse than he did in college, but that's just the design of rookie minicamp. I am sure if you head down to Latrobe in training camp, he will look better than he just did in early May. But regardless of what you think of Drew Allar, how do you think Drew Allar being there impacts Will Howard? Immaterial of Aaron Rodgers, really, because if Aaron Rodgers is there, he's going to start. If Aaron Rodgers is not there, they're either going to have to bring another veteran. Mason would then stay and probably start, and they just wouldn't be as good overall, you'd imagine. Or maybe Will Howard would get the nod. I think we would agree, right, that Howard would get a chance before Drew Allar. If somehow Rodgers is not there. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, certainly as we sit here
here now, unless Allar really impresses him, okay, as we sit here now, because I understand that there are fans, that's even a polarizing thing to say. They would prefer Allar in that regard. But just in general, and even for the future, do you view them bringing in Allar as he's more the guy they're grooming for the future and Mike McCarthy wants him to be the guy after Aaron Rodgers, or because he didn't draft Will Howard, that was Mike Tomlin's group, or Mike McCarthy is still open to, I'm going to get the most out of Drew Allar as a prospect, but I also am going to get the most out of Will Howard. And then if Rodgers is not here this year or when he retires next year, I'm open to either guy being my starter. Will Howard was a 6th-round pick. That would be much more historic outside of Brady if he ends up being the guy. Where's the Will Howard of this with Drew Allar there? Because according to Will Howard, he still thinks he's the guy in the future for this franchise, but maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, I think, listen, any objective observer had viewed Allar as the better prospect, the higher ranked prospect, the higher. Yeah. I don't think anybody denies he has the higher ceiling.
Sure.
Will Howard.
Talent wise, talent, 100%.
Yeah. So I think that and then you throw in the fact that McCarthy actually did draft under him. They're the ones that drafted Drew Allar, and Howard was the holdover. So if you had to handicap it in terms of who would be more likely to be the quarterback of the future, I think you have to say Drew Allar. Now, that doesn't mean 100% it works out that way. Sure. I genuinely believe they're an open mind, and Mike McCarthy and the staff, offensive staff, the organization is willing to keep. They had a really positive experience. Will Howard is very coachable. He's very smart. He's good in the room, and he's a hard worker. Everything about him, it fosters to they owe it, not necessarily owe it to him, but I think that they're happy to give him that opportunity, and they owe it to themselves more than that to have this player who showed as a 6th-round pick, showed good things, and I think. But he's still a 6th-round pick. But I think they did it now. They brought them in the 4th. You know what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. He probably showed that he maybe was deserving of a higher than a 6th-round selection to this point.
But we also have everybody knows, zero game film because he didn't make the preseason because he was hurt. Right. So that losing that was so disappointing because we all have so much better idea. I know
he'd have a big lead over. I think he would have an edge then, at least perception wise.
And so yes, I think whenever
it's almost like he's a rookie now too, in a way.
For what it's worth, and it's worth a little bit. That first practice at camp, first OTAs or whatever they go out there. Yeah. So much Rodgers. Rodgers will take the first set of snaps, and then Rudolph will be next in line, and then Howard will be next in line, and then Allar before. Now, we get to end the training camp. If Allar has progressed in some way or Howard stagnated or whatever, I don't think it's out of the question to think that Allar moves up ahead of him on the depth chart. Now, the main question will be, because Allar, as a 3rd-round pick and a rookie and having the ceiling he does, is guaranteed to make the roster.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and obviously.
Unless there's IR or something, which will still make it. But he's going to be there. So the question will be, will the Steelers, assuming Rodgers is there, feel comfortable enough with the 2 young guys?
Yeah, that's true.
Backups.
That's true.
That's where it goes, whether it's going to be Rudolph or Howard, because even if you still believe in developing those 2, if they're not at the point that Mike McCarthy could sit there and say, we got a game against Baltimore on 4 days from now, one of these guys is taking the field for me. If you don't feel comfortable with that yet, then you got to keep Rudolph. And that's not a great sign. It doesn't mean you shut the door because, when we talked about, Allar's a longer-term thing here. It's not a great sign for his development that he's not there yet, but it's also perfectly reasonable to say, I still believe in him in the future, But, we're trying to win a division this year. We're trying to get the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
I can't trust. I need to have Mason here to be able to fill in for me for a week or two if something happens to my starter.
Yeah, and then you're going to have the debate if you should then trade Will Howard, because if we agree he's proven he was probably better than a 6th-round pick just on just what he's shown even in the practices and around the facility. He did win a college national championship, even though, by the way, Chris, I covered him when he was at Kansas State as well, and that was a different guy. So you could argue that Ohio State is a double boost in who you are. We've yet to have that proven or unproven, though, in the NFL, because, of course, he has not played. But if you're knee-deep into Drew Allar, for better or worse, and if you sign Aaron Rodgers, he obviously has to be on the team, and you're in win now mode, whether you should or not, you'd rather win a division than have 5 wins. That's the Steeler way. I don't think that's the best, but that for the future, but that's what they want to do. If that's you, then you're moving Howard eventually. Like, he's going to be your 4th QB. Maybe he'll be on the practice squad. If he's proven enough to the league, maybe you actually would get a draft pick for him. Like, maybe somebody else who needs a QB to groom that they don't have a Drew Allar would give you something for that man. Again, he proved a lot in college at the end of his career. That would be another debate there. And as we round things out, that then moves us into the conversation, which the Steelers disagree with clearly because they're interested in bringing Rodgers back and likely still will, of the opinion that I'm sure people listening to this are screaming, well, maybe the best thing to do is you tell Aaron Rodgers, thank you for 2025. That was fantastic. You're still part of McCarthy's career with that championship, but we are going to no longer be in the Aaron Rodgers business. We are going to have this team be what it is. And if we don't win a title, oh, well, and we'll move on to the future because they're unlikely to win a championship or have a deep playoff run with Rodgers anyway. And maybe you have Rudolph start the year and then you switch it up in the middle of the year. They're never going to punt a year like that. That kind of would be punting a year in a way. But for the future, that might be best. And that brings up that whole side of that conversation, because if you have Rodgers, you really have 4 quarterbacks and you're just not going to carry 4 quarterbacks. And if you don't, and if you trade Rudolph, that everybody thinks they're trading Rudolph if they sign Rodgers, as you said, they would then have 2 basically rookies, one a sophomore who hasn't played, and then Drew Allar, a rookie who you just drafted. And it's pretty likely that Rodgers is not playing every game. No starter does. He didn't. And he would be a whole year older by the time the playoffs hit if you assume you're going to be making it, because his birthday is in December, which nobody equates into this as well. It's not like he's a summer birthday like my daughter's. Chris Adamski here at a Tribune-Review on Mic Drop. I do want to ask you, before I let you go, what do you think, and I'll ask it this way and give you kind of an open floor here, because everyone's focused on the quarterbacks, everyone's focused on Aaron Rodgers, everyone's focused on even criticizing Rooney. I do it too. It makes sense. What do you think that we as media, the fans, should know or be talking about in concern to the rest of the roster right now?
I still, we'll see how the offensive line shakes out. There's a lot of intriguing kind of moving pieces there that are possible. I thought that during rookie camp it was notable. It's only rookie camp, a lot can change, of course, but that Iheanacho repped exclusively at right tackle, Max Iheanacho, the 1st-round pick, of course. I thought that was, you still don't know what exactly to read into that. Are they thinking of moving Fautanu to the left side this year? Are they thinking of moving Fautanu to the left side in the future? Either way, you would think Iheanacho has been a right tackle his whole. He did rep a little bit. He did play like 1-star left tackle, I think, in Arizona State. But been a right tackle. Yeah. Is that kind of the vision for the future for the offensive line? Is it possible in 2026? I don't think Max Iheanacho is pegged to start or likely to start this season in week 1, but it's certainly on the table. If he impresses and if he has a good camp, there's no reason not to play him, right? So would he start at right tackle? Would Fautanu move the left side then? Is that a sign that Broderick Jones isn't healthy? There's no chance to be healthy or less healthy than even we think from the outside here. So I thought that was notable. And then Dunker taking all his reps at left guard. Jennings Dunker, the third one of the 3rd-round picks out of Iowa, that everybody loves.
Yeah, he is the new hair king of Pittsburgh, 100%. Yes.
him at left guard, I think, also was telling, because that hey, this isn't really anything. We presume that when you draft somebody in the third round, you don't, and your left guard from last year leaves in free agency, that you have a hole there. That he's going to be given a chance to win that job. That's a three-way competition as we sit here now. Spencer Anderson, Brock Hoffman was a signee from an old Cowboys player who worked under Mike McCarthy, and Dunker to see who would win that left guard spot. That seems to be the way that'll play out. So obviously that's important in terms of both protecting your 42-year-old quarterback and developing your young quarterbacks. You want to have a good offensive line. And so watching how the O-line shakes out, I think is, maybe one of the main, summer and training camp issues to follow.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair. And the Steelers sent that message with an early round pick to an offensive lineman. That was a safe pick. They're clearly going to try to repair that. And whether it's a 42, 43-year-old quarterback, or whether it's an incredibly inexperienced Drew Allar or Will Howard, or whether it's Mason Rudolph, who's basically a career backup, you're going to need a solid offensive line. Like, you could argue the Steelers need an offensive line more than any team in football. Needing to have an offensive line be good in order for them to be good. And the other connection that we won't talk about here is, and what held the team back a lot last year and was a problem for even Rodgers, and he kind of subtly mentioned it multiple times, they didn't really have a running game, or at least a consistent one. And if you don't have a running game, whether that's the fault of the offensive line or the running backs, that makes it harder on the quarterback as well, especially when he's older. And none of these guys are incredibly mobile. Maybe you could argue Allar, but it's not like you have a burner out there. So that's another important facet here. And the offensive line being great and being at its best will help out the running game, even if you don't have an elite back like maybe in years past. So, Chris, I appreciate the time. We'll have to do a Buzzsaw and Buzzsaw show at some point again here as we get more answers to some of these questions and then can debate them. But I appreciate it. And we also got to get together and maybe have a conversation off the air. Two Buzzsaws having a beer as well, as our lives maybe get a little calmer here for the next couple months until they rev up again.
Yes, the summer, the old midsummer. That's probably the best hope. But yes, always good to
for sure.
Good to catch up on here too and everything. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Chris Adamski of the Tribune-Review. I always enjoy talking to Chris. And as I said at the open, for anyone who missed it there, we both share a nickname here in the Pittsburgh media space. He's one of the best guys really to talk to around, one of the nicest guys. I've always got along with him since I joined the industry and was a part of this region and market. And he was, of course, here before me. But yeah, Chris is an absolute good guy and made a lot of valid points here. And again, everyone's making some of these, but we are probably going to stop talking about Aaron Rodgers once he gets there, even though it's been ridiculous that this has lingered again, especially when I read the second again. And I keep saying this. Here's the difference. Here's why I criticize the perception more this offseason than last. Rooney said he wanted to know by a certain date early in this offseason. He did not say that a year earlier. And I do think, and Chris and I both joked, and it was a little throwaway comment of mine that he said he hadn't thought of, that no one really is bringing up, but Cam Hayward, others, no one's really current Steelers are not discussing Aaron Rodgers, even those with podcasts, and they did a year ago. And Rodgers didn't like it, and that kind of went back and forth. They joked about it. It does feel like they are still now in year two, with Rodgers a year older, even a new coaching staff, walking the wire around Aaron Rodgers' feelings, and whether this is about money or whatever, because obviously if you sign him, he's going to play. There is some type of, we understand Rodgers has the leverage. We want to win now, even if we should build for the future. And we're going to do things that make Rodgers happy. We're not going to piss him off. We want him to be here. And that's our life. It shouldn't still be your life in year two. I could see it last year, maybe one more year of doing it with Tomlin. Okay. But now that a new coach is there, even though he's also older, you shouldn't be doing this again, especially when you set a deadline. And I don't think Rodgers has all the leverage they seem to think, because he's not going to play really anywhere else. The Cardinals thing is not happening, and there is no other contender, unless we get an injury, that is going to bring in Aaron Rodgers. And even if Matt Stafford or somebody would get hurt, I don't even think that guarantees Aaron Rodgers comes aboard. Does he fit? Can he learn it that quick? He's older. How fragile is he? I mean, this is an Aaron Rodgers that was good last year, better than what the Steelers have had, still bottom tier as a starter, good, not great. Aaron Rodgers is not winning you a championship no matter what team he's on. Currently, the way he is in 2026. That's just the case. He's done. He has the one ring. That's going to be what he retires with. But the Steelers would rather crawl into the playoffs, likely with him, than to miss without him, which would likely be the difference of this coming season. And we could debate until the end of time whether it'd be better for the Steelers' future to not get in and to develop these young guys. And it would, and I agree. They're just never going to do that, regardless of who is the head coach. Art Rooney II will not allow it. But he's also the man who set the deadline, and he's also the man right now with some egg on his face, as we still here, as we're recording this in the middle of May, and we have national people saying there's no update. We have local and national people misreporting what's going on throughout a weekend, and we have Chris Adamski here from the Tribune-Review basically saying he doesn't know, and Chris is a great reporter in there every single day. So, again, that is a scenario right now. That is the as Aaron Rodgers turns. That is the general Aaron Rodgers hospital. That is the Aaron Rodgers of our lives, the days of our Aaron Rodgers lives. Whatever soap opera title that you want to throw on there and get Aaron Rodgers' name in there, that's where we are right now. Not as dramatic as when he's making political comments or on McAfee every day. Sure. Still some drama, especially in a fishbowl-like market like Pittsburgh. This is not like New York. Maybe we don't care as much about what's going on with his political beliefs, but we do care about whether he shows up or not, or whether he signs or not. We're not going to give him the mulligan until June, like maybe other places would. And if he doesn't want to hear any of this, he could at least publicly let it be announced that he's going to show up and going to play. He'll sign soon, or sign and then not do any of these camps and then get there in June, and that'll be fine. Get there in August if it has to be, and that'll be fine because he does know the coach and know this system, even though it is new for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That'll do it for this edition of the show. I once again appreciate Chris Adamski taking the time. He's a very, very busy man, on and off the beat, for sure, to talk about Aaron Rodgers and Drew Allar, Will Howard, and the rest of this team, and hope to have Chris back when we can actually talk about the rest of this team and have some time to discuss more about this team than just the Aaron Rodgers of it all. But that's where we are right now, nonetheless. Make sure to hit up Mic Drop everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play, etc. You can also find this show and every episode of the program on the Believe Network main page by searching Mic Drop or Mic Drop with Mike Asti there in the Believe Network's page. And of course, this episode, as well as every episode of Mic Drop, is played on SiriusXM.